What is up, everybody? I'm Admiral Ansley. In this video, we're going to be talking about like the really high-level, advanced spiritual warfare stuff, you guys. I think everybody is ready for this. I think everybody knows enough about a lot of the things I'm going to talk about to really grasp this whole big picture view of what spiritual warfare really is about and how actually it's like working around us all the time, whether or not we know it or not. And so by recognizing the patterns of spiritual warfare, we can better arm ourselves. We can better fight the enemy as well. So in this video, I'm going to talk about communism, and I'm going to talk about Christ. I'm going to talk about things like the pineal gland. I'm going to talk about things like ancient history and like the death cult and all this stuff and how it all intertwines, how it all like creates this whole that is greater than the sum of its parts. Okay, and when everybody grasps all these little parts and how they create this whole, then we can really start moving forward as like, you know, a nation, as a species, and kick off these evil forces that are on our planet forever. And yes, it is possible to get rid of evil in this world forever. Okay, so with that said, let's get started. So it's important to start with the idea that according to quantum physicists, human beings actually do not produce consciousness in their brain. They don't produce awareness in their brain, but rather it's almost like the brain and the body are like an antenna for something that they call non-local consciousness, which is essentially self-awareness of some sort, a raw awareness that is embedded in the very fabric of space-time itself on all levels and dimensions. Okay, and it's almost like we're tapping into this mind, this non-local consciousness, and we're absorbing data almost like an antenna, and we're doing so on a very specific frequency of vibration. Okay, a very specific range, almost like, you know, there's a very specific range for that your radio dial can tune into. Okay, it's kind of the same thing, except there's a very specific range that we're able to perceive with our five senses, and then there's another range that we can perceive beyond our five senses once we've recognized the fact that we're not just the body, that we are this non-local consciousness signal. And in the process, what you're essentially doing is you're tapping into what is called the fractal geometry of the universe itself, which is essentially a double torus field and what is known as a vector equilibrium at its center. A double torus field based on a vector equilibrium at its center, which is essentially a stable structure in space and time that is based off of the rotation of two opposing equally powerful forces rotating around one another pretty much infinitely, creating a spiral infinitely downward and infinitely upward. Okay, counterclockwise and clockwise. And this is essentially what creates the electromagnetic field. That's why the heart is the strongest electromagnetic pulse in the body, is because it's where this frequency is centered. It's where this double torus field is centered around our bodies. Now, we have numerous different other electromagnetic centers on the body that also amplify or are responsible for this signal that's coming from the heart. Okay, and they regulate different organs and different glands and things like that in the body. And all based off of the thoughts, all based off of the emotions and stuff like that. That's what dictates the frequency of this electromagnetic field that surrounds the body. So fear-based emotions end up being very, very low frequency waves. And the Heart Math Institute came to find that when they put these low frequency waves over our DNA, certain antennae on the DNA that were activated that were responsible for sending and receiving Lighten information. Now, that should really, you know, go, hey there, wow, what? So essentially our DNA is like an antenna for sending and receiving the non-local consciousness signal. And the more fearful we are, the less of this DNA we have, less of these antennae we have activated. And the more loving and high frequency we are, the more of these DNA antennae we activate. And in this way, when we have a high frequency emotion like love, our electromagnetic field actually expands farther and farther beyond the body, and you become more and more one with nature itself. Whereas when you have fear-based emotions, what ends up happening is your DNA tightens and there's less of these antennae activated, so you don't send and receive the signal of non-local consciousness as much. You identify more with the body than you do with the non-local consciousness. And thusly, you end up tightening this electromagnetic field around your body, and in many cases, you can end up causing large amounts of disharmony in the process. And this is where people get diseases and stuff, from, because they're not dealing with, say, certain emotions or certain thought patterns or certain patterns of behavior due to certain emotions or thought patterns that end up leading them down a negative path. And so the way that it's all deeply knit and intertwined is that everything, including the Earth, has a double torus field. The sun itself has a double torus field. The galaxy has a double torus field. The entire universe has a double torus field of energy that is cycling through it based off of electromagnetics, essentially. And with all of that laid out, try to keep in mind that because we were sending and receiving non-local consciousness, because we're essentially living in what is called a quantum hologram, there's a bunch of different individual possibilities that your electromagnetic field can move to in the dimensions of space and time. Okay? And that's all based off of your thoughts and your emotions. That's how some people are able to achieve their dreams, and other people choose not to. And it's because of the fear-based emotional mentality or the love-based emotional mentality. Do these people that succeed believe in themselves? How do they feel about themselves? Do they love themselves? Do they go through adversity and then feel confident and strong again and move forward? Or do they weaken and do they say, I can't do it, and they feel like a failure and they fear failure again, you see? And that keeps them in this one possibility versus another. So what we have to keep in mind is that within the Earth's electromagnetic field, there are multiple different possibilities for us to branch to as individuals. And this is what is called the quantum probability wave. Okay, this is the whole idea of if you don't look at an atom, if you're not looking at an atom, it's a wave. The moment you look at it, it's a particle. Okay, it's because what we're witnessing is the condensation of reality into a physical appearance, a quantum hologram, based on our observation. Okay, but all the time, everything is in almost like a wave state because we're a part of the Earth's larger probability wave state. Now, I'll try to help make that to make more sense by explaining that this larger Earth probability state is dictated based off of the behavior of the life forms. So if there's large amounts of people on the planet that are in this state of love and their consciousness is expanded to the point where they understand that they are connected to God, they are connected to non-local consciousness, then that is going to produce a whole different type of world than if we have a world full of people that are fearful with their electromagnetic field, their spirit tucked around their body, believing that they are only a body and not a soul. You see, that they are only a body and not a non-local consciousness being, a being connected to God, essentially. Okay? So that's what this whole idea is. The body is the temple of God. You see, because you're aware of yourself in the dimensions of time and space. And you continue to be aware of yourself in the dimensions of time and space to the point where you can make choices and stuff like that. You can create stuff. Okay, you can pray and then meditate and get inspired with new perspectives on reality and yourself and the pattern that you're going in life and stuff like that. And in this way, as you move through the world and you choose positive decisions, you end up creating the positive effects in reality that you desire, and thusly you affect other people, and thusly those other people affect other people, and then you can create a better collective waveform for the world. I hope all that makes sense. So, how is it that these different versions of reality are connected? Why do some occur and some don't? Well, it's because of something known as non-local entanglement. It's another quantum physics thing where if two atoms end up interacting with one another, then let's say they fly universes apart. If this atom changes its electromagnetic spin resonance, so does this one. If this changes its spin, so does this. And so because they interacted with one another at one point in space and time, they end up affecting each other for the rest of their existence.